All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 2, Ruthless Politics with Kid, Chronic Treez.
Hello, everyone. How are we?
How are we? A lot of news, a lot of current events. This is a nonstop thing. That's why we have this podcast. We'll be able to talk all the time.
We live in a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycle.
It is overload.
I actually hate it when the news isn't really on Saturday and they put the half-assed news on because I'm such a news junkie. I'm like, come on, Anthony Bourdain. I want to see some real news here.
It's kind of funny how news on the weekend is completely different than on weekdays, breaking things or how things. It's really strange how everything seems to occur in the 5-day week.
That's a really interesting topic because now that I think about it for the first time, it must be based on the news celebrities, right? Anderson Cooper or like Sean Hannity, he doesn't want to work on the weekend, so he has it off. But it's odd because the news consumer's like, okay, I'm home on the weekend. I'm here. I can learn some information. Oh, nope, news isn't on. Yeah. It's only on while you're working.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and how they'll move things so that people aren't paying attention to them. A lot of times over the weekend, it's kind of strange how that works.
Oh, there's a whole art to releasing news. You know, like if you notice, a lot of times bad news comes out on a Friday because, you know, it's going to be lost by the time Monday rolls around. So the art of the news release is a whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a planned thing. We are at the Space Coast Podcast Studios in sunny Florida. And again, you're listening to Ruthless Politics. Let's jump in. We appreciate everybody listening, by the way. And we're going to hit some more topics than we did in the introductory episode because we spent so much time on the 2020 candidates, and that was so deep with how many there were. So let's start with something a little light. Your boy Pete Buttigieg, right?
Buttigieg. That's
Buttigieg. He's catching a lot of shit for his handling of a shooting in South Bend. And it's got a racial element to it. It's, I believe, a white officer and shooting a young black man. What's your opinion on, first of all, should he be catching shit? What is he really supposed to do here? And how's this, in your opinion, how do you think this is going to affect his campaigning? This is right before the debates.
It's I would have to say it's really fascinating because it is for Pete Buttigieg, I guess, like his first big challenge, if you will, or a lot of people will say that. But like you also mentioned, what is he supposed to do in this scenario? So is Pete Buttigieg, which is he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, folks, and this is where this shooting took place. Is he supposed to step in and heal the racial injustice of Indiana in 15-minute speech or something? What is he supposed to do to alleviate all this? There's really not much he can do except step in there and be the lightning rod for these people's anger and frustration. And so that's what he's done. But inversely, that really hurts him politically because it creates these kind of made-for-TV moments where, minorities are yelling at him like, hey, what are you doing for me? People are dying here. You're our mayor. And it's just, it's awful for his political campaign, I think.
If this guy's going to make it through, he obviously needs the black vote. So having any sort of racial tension is not going to help that. Let me just read to you really quickly. So it says, a white police officer, Ryan O'Neill, shot and killed a black man, Eric Logan, in South Bend, where Buttigieg is the mayor. And it says there's long-simmering tensions between the residents and the police force. Apparently, the officer who fired the shot has been accused of racist remarks before. So partially what Buttigieg is catching his crap for is that he let this fester, that apparently, and this was, I guess, no surprise to anybody, but that there's kind of a racial problem in South Bend that is now being highlighted by this, and he's got to answer for it, I guess, and it's interesting how he's going to navigate his way through this one.
I don't know how he's going to navigate his way through it other than just sit there, take it, and then move forward. But the reality is this. The problem with police shootings and just with the police's interactions with the community in general, it really boils down to police training. We have a friend of ours, Big Al, who is a bail bondsman, and he's been an advertiser of ours for years. And Big Al is one of the people, he runs a business called Shooting R Us that trains police. And he talks about how they train them to shoot to kill, how they're often trained to shoot an animal before it bites them. And there's a lot of things that are set into police training where it's kind of built up now, where it's military training in a way. And they're trained that they're not supposed to be touched. They're not supposed to have really anything happen to them at all. So the police are really like, they're kind of put themselves in a position now where it's going to be hard for them to change. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go all the way down to the core of how we train these police officers. And then you have the issue of all the police officers are already trained. They just did a study where they went through and they checked out all the police officers' Facebooks across the country, tons of different police officers. And what they found was appalling. They were a racist. They were encouraging people to be beat up. They were everything you don't want your police officer to be. So when you have a systemic culture and a training system that's national, how are you going to change that around? And so sometimes what happens is a politician, something bad happens under his watch. He's willing to go down and try to deal with it, which is all he can really do. And now he's blamed for the systemic problem that's been building for, 50 years? It's not really fair, you know?
No, and to touch on some of the police things that you were just talking about, and going off on a little tangent with that, I've had this conversation many times. It's like mechanics. It's like cooks. It's like servers. It's like anything. There's good and bad. So you can't assume that all police are good or all police are bad. You have, it's a mixed bag. There are people that get into this because they're on a power kick. There are people that are going to get into this knowing that they're going to have access to things and be able to do dirt. A lot of gangbangers, I don't know if you know this, L.A., this was a common thing with the Rodney King going way back when, but a lot of gangbangers, when they grow up, become cops in a lot of these bigger cities. L.A., a prime example. Miami, another one. You'll see these guys who, when they were 22, they were gangbanging, but now they're 34 and more responsible. But I still feel like you don't take that out of them. You know what I mean? So
it's a very low entry to get into, that kind of job, right? And I think there's also a push to get minorities into these types of positions where they can get city jobs and things like that. So it does happen that you can get in there and kind of be undertrained or not be the best person suited for that position. That's definite. And there's something to be said for that. Should police officers be carrying around weapons and have all of this power when they don't even really understand the laws that they enforce? You know what I mean? They don't even have a basic community college, legal background.
Well,
and they certainly don't have enough training when it comes to diffusing situations, to being comfortable being touched. Like if you're a police officer, people are going to touch you. You're going to get bumped around a little bit in that job, I would imagine. And you can't just go shooting people every time you're scared.
Yeah, well, like you said, the itchy trigger finger, and I believe that the training is poor and it's not universal. The training that an officer gets in Phoenix is not the same training I fully believe that one might get in Miami or
a rural area.
Yeah, I think it's different. And yes, there's itchy trigger fingers, and then I think that there's people that get hardened by this. So a Chicago police officer who's been doing that for 20 years or whatever is certainly more going on in his head than somebody that worked Beverly Hills for 2 years.
I have a novel idea for you guys. How about this one? How about lawyers become cops? There's way too many lawyers right now. Law school's pumping out lawyers everywhere. Lawyers have no employment. Right. Their criminal justice system is shrinking. We're going through criminal justice reform. So lawyers should be the cops and maybe pay them a little bit more money.
They would love that. Matter of fact, you're going to see RoboCop. That's a real thing. So
terrifying.
You're going to see AI and all that's also going into the police thing too. So, the police, they're always going to be under fire, no matter what side you're on. It's a very hard job. It's a thankless job. And
very
it's a
hard job.
You
very
could
hard
die.
job. You have to give them credit. It's a hard job.
Yeah, you can be killed.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So to wrap up, Buttigieg, hey man, good luck. I think the best thing that happened is this happened early. You deal with it, go to the debate, and yeah, like you said, he's got to move on. There's nothing.
It's politics. He needs to find a way to spin these lemons into lemonade, and it's not going to be on the ground in South Bend, Indiana. And I hate to say this, but from a political standpoint, him going on the ground and being face-to-face with people that are angry or just any person that's in the general public is foolish. It's a foolish media move. He should have made a broad speech about this subject, and it might not have helped the people on the street, and it might not have made him feel better, but it would have been better overall. Him going down there and taking that abuse from, general people who are going to be upset with anybody that shows up at that point was a real campaign mistake, and his campaign manager should get a real kick in the ass for that one.
Yeah, they fed him to the lions.
Exactly.
All right, so